You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. Well, there's a water problem in the country. Municipalities, counties, governments have not invested properly to see to it that water quality is maintained or improved, and they're in a catch-up phase. And the person you're about to hear from has a solution. We're so far behind on our water infrastructure. It's really going to come into play in the future. It is all over the world. In the United States, we just take our clean water out of the tap that it's drinkable as just for granted. But most of the world, that is not the case. Riggs Eckleberry is with us now. He runs OriginClear, which is trying to help the world get out of this mess. Riggs, welcome to the show. So tell us, how do we get out of this mess?
Well, Kerry, and by the way, I love your intro. Really, really nice. Thank you. It's a basic analogy. Let's take Miami-Dade County. Right now, they had a very helter-skelter development way back in decades ago, and they built without a lot of planning. And now they have over 100,000 septic tanks in the county. And now that the water levels are rising, guess what's happening? It's like, oops. So they know they have to get rid of those septic tanks. The conventional model is to literally pipe sewer lines to every single one of these, which is the minimum of $6 billion budget and 20 years of streets being torn up and so forth. And meanwhile, the problem continues. The way things are going and where it's inevitable is that you would simply give those homeowners a rebate to put in their own self-treating system. And it would happen in a matter of months, not years, no disruption, and 1/10 the price. So that's the new model, is sort of, self-reliant water treatment, decentralization, take the load off the central utilities, which are failing, and let people take care of it themselves.
How much would it cost a homeowner to do it? And what guarantee do you have that the system is going to be effective, that they install?
Well, actually, it's a well-proven. One thing about the water industry, they have plenty of technology. So, for example, I can point to our own work tends to be more in, we don't go all the way down to the single family home. We work with clusters, for example, housing developments or industrials. But let's take Fuji. Fuji Water has an amazing home system. You'll spend, $12,000, maybe as little as $8,000, for a system that takes all your black water, the stuff from the toilet, and cleans it completely. And it can either be recycled onto lawns or sent back to the city. And there's also a sludge tank that is emptied out once every 6 months or once a year. And that's it. It's highly effective. It makes very clean water. And the question is, why don't we see more of it? Well, it's because there's a number of reasons, one of them being funding. In other words, people aren't thinking that way, like, well, why instead of spending $80,000 for a home, let's spend $8,000 and just let it happen that way. The thinking, it's legacy thinking, and I came out of high tech, and so I try to think in futures.
Right. Okay, so like the conventional septic, basically, without getting too graphic over it, kind of dumps the stuff out into a leaching field where it kind of seeps back into the soil and gets cleaned up. There's clay there. I don't even quite get how it works. I just know it's a pain having a septic. This one, on the other hand, isn't going to leach, is it?
No, it's a water treatment plant in your home, literally. So it's like, let's take, for example, breweries, which have had a lot of trouble in recent years. There's a case, for example, in San Francisco area, Sonoma County, East Bay, and so forth, of breweries expanding and municipalities saying, no, it's too much, and being forced to truck the effluent to other counties. Well, of course, eventually they put in their own water treatment system. and solve the problem. That's what's happening more and more. There's more and more failure to treat. And here's an interesting trend: is there's more and more communities being built away from the sewage grid because of the post-COVID migration. There's a lot of movement to what's called secondary cities, and it's a good thing, I think, that we get more and more movement up. But when you move to a smaller city, it may not have the sewage facilities.
Sure.
And so you locate a housing development on land that's really cheap because there's no sewage access. You just put in your own system, and Bob's your uncle. So that's happening a lot already. It's not very visible, but we're a leader in modular systems that roll out to these on-site users. And we even have a very innovative way of funding these so people don't have to pay up front. So that's the trend. And we think that it's going to increase. And what's great is the municipalities, their load is reduced. They can run. They don't have this big problem of trying to treat everything because it's being done at the periphery.
All right. So 2 things here. Number one, there's a lot of land out there. When you're putting in a septic system, you got to have a perk test, which stands for percolation. And that shows how the effluent will seep into the soil and eventually degrade organically. Actually, septic systems are really a green thing. It's just they wear out over time and then leaks and stuff like that. So properties where you could never get a building permit because they always fail the perk test, this is a perfect thing to take real estate that is literally worthless and turn it into gold.
Correct. And in fact, FHA has a requirement for a minimum, I think it's 50 yards or something between the house and the leaching field. And so that dictates, that's why you tend to see houses at the very front of the lot, right? Because of that problem. Right. So this liberates you from it. Imagine a housing development which has a treatment plant for all the houses, and it's a perfect closed circuit system that we've built. We build these all day long for dealerships and so forth. And now their problem is very simple. Septic tanks do fail, and there's hundreds of thousands of viral and bacterial illnesses that come from failed septics. And I think that's important to remember. And in places that are low-lying, like Miami-Dade, literally water seepage is creating this bubble-up effect, which is not a pretty one.
Yeah, New Orleans too, and many places in Europe as well. So also, I see it that communities, like you said, that are expanding but don't want to or can't afford to extend their sewer systems. So one other thing I thought about when I was listening to you talk about this is oftentimes you'll build a house and you'll put in the minimum septic system. And then you want to expand that house. And guess what? You can't, because your septic system won't support the extra bedrooms. So here, is there a possibility of doing a hybrid septic and water treatment facility? Or do you just switch it over to all water treatment because it's more efficient?
Well, you can do the hybrid. I think that it pays off to take the money you spend on a septic and just put it all into the closed circuit black water system, which colloquially by the water industry is called sewage skim. That's a sewage skim system, but technically it's a black water recirculation system. You might as well just go ahead and put all the value in that. As I say, it's mature technology. It's been around. And it uses, reverse osmosis, which means the water that comes out is clean. There's no question it's good stuff.
It's drinkable, but you can't get people to drink this stuff.
No, but you'll use it, to recharge groundwater, because even in the Midwest, the aquifers are dropping because of overuse. So there's always a need to go ahead and groundwater discharge your water if it meets the minimum requirements.
Yeah, same thing. In like Arizona, they could be discharging. I know they started a plan a number of years ago to treat the effluent and redischarge the aquifer. No one was happy about it, but they have no choice in the matter. So this is really a question of how you manage water resources, as well as how you treat waste from homes and businesses?
I would say the game is water, because look, black water is 99.9% water, right? There's very little actual sewage in human waste, so it's really a water game. And America, okay, Israel recycles almost 90% of its water. Second in the world is Spain at 20%. The U.S. is 1%.
That much, huh?
Right? Yeah, well, because we're advanced. But the reason why it's so low is because these, when you have a lot of, it's like the old telephone landlines. Africa is in much better shape because it never had landlines. Similarly with water, we invested early on in the big, heavy one-way systems. When you treat the water in Beverly Hills and you use the water in Beverly Hills, it runs downhill to El Segundo by the Santa Monica Bay. It's not coming back uphill. It's going into the bay. Right. Treated, it's clean, but you wasted that fresh water. And so these systems are one-way systems, just like the energy grid is a one-way system. And to get these proper circular systems, you do it yourself.
Okay. I like the idea of it. And I like the fact that it's less capital intensive. Why don't we just get the Congress to just pass a tax credit for this?
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Fury Gold Mines is a Canada-focused exploration and development company committed to aggressively growing its scalable, high-grade gold assets with major drill campaigns planned across its 3.5 million-ounce portfolio. Fury is led by a management team of proven explorers and developers with a track record of success in advancing and financing project development. Fury Gold Mines is well-positioned to create value for investors with low-risk development growth and the potential for a new major discovery. Fury Gold Mines trades on the TSX and NYSE American under the ticker FURY. To learn more, go to furygoldmines.com. That's furygoldmines.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
I think it's going to start locally. One great thing about our federal system is, of course, there can be areas of the labs. Our states are labs, right? And they try different ideas, and some work, some don't. And so you can get certain districts, counties, states where things work. And I think that our company relocated to Florida from California, and we think that the Southeast is very innovative. Texas, the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, these are great places for new things to be tried. And I think that's where we're getting a lot of innovation. Remember, the Carolinas are stuck with a huge amount of poultry farm pollution in the rivers, creating nitrate discharge, which means algae, which is poisonous to fish, et cetera. So, there's a lot of need, and it's perhaps a little bit more, as Elon Musk said, if he tried to build his gigafactory in California, he'd still be doing permits.
Hey, well, in Florida, down in South Florida here, we got this problem with Lake Okeechobee, and all the farm waste accumulates there. And then eventually there is a dike or a levee. And when it gets too high up, they have to release it into this canal that goes both to the West Coast and the East Coast, because that's just the way they did things 100 years ago, and nobody thought of this stuff. And then we've got the algae overgrowth taking place in where is it? Port St. Lucie, Stewart area, really doing immeasurable harm to the aquatic wildlife. Why aren't they doing this? I realize that you need a huge system, obviously, but why don't we do this there?
I was a few years ago, I took a vacation in Italy, and we were by around a volcanic lake, and so fields all around this lake, and yet the lake was pristine. You could see down 30 yards, 60 yards. You could drink the water because they had excellent treatment right on each single field. They made sure that the nitrates did not get into the lake. So the first step is, and you're talking farms, you're really talking about the sugarcane industry. Really. And that's the big.
It shouldn't exist, but we won't get into the politics of the sugar industry, domestic sugar industry in the United States. It goes way back to the Cuban Revolution. We don't need to go there. But yes, it's sugarcane induced, and then they burn the sugarcane when they harvest it. It's an ecological disaster.
At the very least, they should be treating it. But because of their influence, it doesn't happen. So then you have to do something. Algae, and in fact, it's interesting because our company started in the algae space, interestingly enough, to create algae for biofuels. And when that market went away with fracking, because the price of crude dropped, we pivoted into water. So we know a lot about algae. Algae is actually doing its job. When it's eating up all those nitrates, it's doing the job it's supposed to do, by actually treating it. Unfortunately,
too good. It's doing too good a job.
It's eating up it's actually making it impossible for fish. It's whatever. So yes, you can harvest the algae, but it's kind of like, having a leak in the boat and constantly bailing, right? It works, but it's tiresome after a while. The better thing would be upstream. I think that we're going to get to these problems a bit later. Where is the action? We've noticed, and this is true because I have a fantastic team in Dallas, Texas that builds amazing systems, another one in Newcastle, Virginia. And we've noticed deal flow coming in of self-sufficient communities. So there's a phenomenon happening where people are moving. And it started long before COVID, but it certainly was accelerated by it. All those lines of U-Haul trucks leaving New York. Yeah. Well, that is now turning into a thing. I was told the other day that there's 40 to 50 developers in North Texas that would love to be able to not do sewage on the communities they're building right now. So, so literally we have them as customers already. We have housing communities, travel stops, trailer parks, RV campgrounds. All these are, we even have a high-end hotel. They're all looking for self-sufficiency in water to take care of their own thing because of water insecurity, but also for quality. People want to have high-quality water. And, the best you can say about municipal water in the United States is it won't kill you right away. But don't drink it for 30 years because you will have high Roundup in your body
right.
So,
but how about bottled water? That's all controversial too, isn't it?
Such a scandal. We invested in a whole home water system, and so we're done with. The problem is, I saw what happened in Flint. Instead of just going around putting, under-sink systems in people's homes, they distributed vast amounts of bottled water. I'm like, is that helpful? No.
You got the plastic and the environment, and it's questionable the health benefits of bottled water. Hey, let me ask you a question, Riggs. I've got a filter in my refrigerator. Is that thing any good?
Yeah, I just replaced one in mine. Now, what I do, I happen to have a whole home system that gets things down to, I think, 0.2 microns. And then the fridge filter, which I use for the ice, takes lead and so forth. And then I have an undersink system, that little faucet, that is really good. It is like super good. It not only gets it totally clean, it rectifies it, so it's not completely barren. So I think you can you don't have to spend vast amounts of money. You can put in that whole home system, which is and you replace the filter every other year or something like that. And I think there's easy solutions. And again, you can do it with a Brita water pitcher. I mean, you don't have to spend that.
Sure.
It's just, being a little bit conscious, not getting those big flats of bottled water at the store, and just, it's a waste of money, obviously. Now, we learned a lot about that when we were building deployment water systems for the military, because when the military can deploy a clean water system, in the forward lines, it saves a vast amount of money and lives by reducing, you have a system in Kandahar, then that system now is replacing, 40,000 bottles of water a week or something, some crazy number. The only one problem is that you have to have backup, because what if it fails? But, it is a very smart way to go. We have to think of ourselves more and more like spaceships. Here we are, communities, homes, communities, businesses, and so forth. We've got to become self-sufficient. I'm keenly aware of the fact that not only is my water in danger, but I have no power backup in this condo. I just moved in. And the grid is getting overloaded. There's going to be rolling blackouts. It's not a fun experience. Pretty soon, we all went virtual, and then all of a sudden the internet goes out.
All right. So, question for an average like 2,000 square foot home: how much does one of these systems cost?
Well, the undersink system is going to be $600 to $700. The whole home system is in between, let's say, $1,200, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So for a total of $2,000, you're doing a great job.
And the wastewater system, what is that going to cost?
Wastewater system is more. It's going to be the $8,000 range.
$8,000?
Yeah.
Well, $8,000 that's the cost of an air conditioner.
8,000. I mean, it's okay. On one level, it's a lot of money, but if you're trying to avoid sewage connections at all, then what you do is you do it at the housing development level, where you have one station.
Yeah. I don't think my local water utility is going to be happy me going into competition with them. You're not allowed to cut off from water or sewer, right?
Oh, no, they're delighted to have it. First of all, they know they're overwhelmed. Let's look at it from the water utilities point of view. Number one, federal funding has disappeared. It went from grants to loans, and even that went away. And the Biden administration's $2 trillion infrastructure plan only have $55 billion for water. That's less than that. We're falling behind with water infrastructure by $75 billion a year. So this is less than 1 year's catch up. So that's going away. So they're literally looking at, where do I pay for things? Number two, they have local departments of environmental protection are mandating higher and higher requirements, rightly so, to reduce arsenic, reduce the forever plastics, all that stuff. And they don't know how to deal with it. So their solution is, hey, push it out to the businesses and say, you deal with it and give us only treated water. So their solution is basically to hand it off to agricultural users, which are 87% of the water usage anyway.
Actually, not a bad idea when you get down to it, because while there is a capital cost, and obviously the larger the plant, the larger the system, the higher your costs are going to be. But still, A, it's the right thing to do. I don't know if that matters or not. And B, it sounds like over time it'd be cost effective, because their sewage costs are just going to keep going up and up. And it's cheaper. That unit is way cheaper than to install a new septic system. Way cheaper than that.
Or sewage lines, exactly. So, digging up land for sewage is so passé. You see, sewage is carried on high pressure lines, whereas treated water can travel on regular gravity lines. So the idea, and what's happening is the high pressure lines are breaking. You see about these mains breaking. Those are high pressure sewage lines, and they're not being replaced. So now cities are going, well, I can't take your sewage because I don't have the lines. Send me treated water, and that's happening more and more. They're not publicizing it because it's not exactly great PR, but they're certainly enabling it. And it's easy to get permitting done for they just want to make sure you do it right, that you're not just dumping. But as long as your standards are good and you're using a reputable system, they're delighted to let you treat them. And then you're sending them treated water, which they're very happy to receive.
Yeah. Well, this topic that really intrigues me, Riggs, I could talk about it all day, but we don't have all day. People want to find out more about you. Where do they go? Well,
they can go to OriginClear.com, where we have, I do a weekly Zoom briefing every Thursday night, which, on OriginClear.com/CEO, we've got transcripts and videos of all of those for the past 160 briefings that I've done. So it's really, really good to join or watch one of those videos. Also, if people are interested in becoming an investor, there's a little green invest button that they can join. And soon we'll have an offering, thank God, for unaccredited investors. Because if there's one thing that I truly hate, is that only high net worth individuals are allowed to invest in these things, which is unfair on the face of it. So thank God we're coming to that very soon.
All right. Excellent. Hey, if you got a question for Riggs, you can always shoot me an email. The address is kl@kerrylutz.com. When you go to the show notes, you'll see a link to OriginClear, so you can click that, get right to Riggs's site. And while you're there, sign up for a free newsletter. It goes out once per week normally, and got one coming out in a couple of days. Riggs, been a pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Kerry, it's such a pleasure, and good luck with your continued work.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.